Hello, welcome everybody. This is Will Booth from DNA Business Management Solutions, and I thank you for joining us for our series Lunch and Learn for February, on this February 22nd, 2023. Today, we will be presenting 5 reasons to move your Sage 300 system to the cloud. And I'm happy to welcome our strategic hosting partner, Cloud at Work, and some of their team members to provide us with a great presentation today. Just so you know, we are recording this, so we will be sending out the recording afterwards. So please, everybody's on mute to keep the audio clear for the recording. If you have any questions, please put them in the questions window in the GoToWebinar here, and I will keep monitoring that and ask Tyler and Jennifer to answer if it makes sense during the presentation or certainly at the Q&A at the end. So without any further ado, I will hand this over. I'll just introduce our presenters today and hand over the baton to them. So I'm very happy that we can welcome Tyler Bauer and Jennifer Ranmau from Cloud at Work. Tyler is the Director of Cloud Hosting Services, has been in this game for probably too long that you may not want to share, but a very long time. Cloud at Work has been doing Sage hosting for many, many years. They are the only Sage certified hosting, strategic hosting partner that has data centers in Canada, a data center in Canada. And so that's why we're working with them today. And Jennifer is our partner success manager, helping us to help you and the Cloud at Work team work together to provide a great hosting solution. So Tyler, I will make you the presenter, okay. And you should just you should be able, I can see your screen, so everything looks great. I can hear you great. So as I mentioned, just feel free to put any questions in the chat and I'll just keep monitoring that as we go.
Well, thank you so much, Will. Really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for your time this afternoon. Really appreciate it. Thought today we could have a discussion around kind of trends that are happening in the technology space. And in reality, these all are combining for the first time in history to kind of influence and create change, if you will, in the way that we think about investment and the way that we think about technology and impacting our business. So I wanted to be able to share that with you. Briefly, first, Will had already gone over the webinar details. The presentation will not be an hour, I promise. I tend not to like to PowerPoint everyone to death. It'll be about 30-35 minutes, so plenty of time for Q&A. So please make sure you type your questions in at the bottom. It's my favorite part about doing these is interacting back and forth. So as I mentioned, my name is Tyler Bauer. I'm the Director of Cloud and Hosting Services at Cloud at Work. I helped start the organization back in 2017. And we started the organization to do 2 things: build the absolute best experience for Sage partners and Sage end users in the cloud. And when we started the organization, we saw a huge gap, that there was a lot of cloud organizations out there who were focused on security, availability, redundancy. However, there was no nuance or no specialty within Sage. And that's a big deal, because at the end of the day, businesses run applications on servers. They don't necessarily run servers, right? Servers are just a means to an end to get better performance, security, and access to their application. When you flip that on its head, there are a lot of Sage hosting companies out there, but what we noticed was that they were cutting corners. They were either eliminating solutions to provide security, availability, redundancy in order to drive prices down, or they were just not very much in tune with where the technology, security, and availability market was going. So that's what we set out to do, to focus on exclusively the Sage ecosystem and to deliver a better experience and pair enterprise cloud capability with a complete and utter Sage focus in our efforts. Today, we work with about 650 Sage end users, or Sage companies, I should say, companies using Sage, and over 20,000 end users. We work with 80 different Sage partners in the ecosystem and work directly with Sage. So when we talk about being accredited, we were the trailblazers for the Sage Strategic Hosting Provider program. We work directly and are the only company that is certified in 100, 300, X3, 500 HRMS fixed assets, the entire product set in both Canada and the US. So it's easy to kind of say these things, but I'm a very visual person. People ask me all the time, Tyler, what makes you guys different? In my opinion, there are all different types of cloud solutions. So there isn't a bad cloud solution out there. There's just the right solution for the right risk or the right type of organization. When I talk to a lot of CEOs and CIOs today, and they have a priority to go to the cloud, everyone thinks of AWS, Azure, Google, which are fantastic companies. I'm not here to denounce the largest players in the game, right? They are infrastructure organizations. However, there are levels of complication that come along with those types of solutions. For instance, at Cloud at Work, we are a very large Azure and Microsoft partner. However, we understand that simplicity and layers introduce a lot of complexity when using applications. So let's go through a scenario, right? You're an organization, you're looking to go to the cloud, and AWS or Azure, you want to kind of walk through that. So first, we need to look at our platform. So Amazon in this case. So at AWS, you're going to be able to buy those servers, be able to very quickly online design an element of those servers. But the question becomes, how do we manage it? How do we secure it? Are we provisioning the right amount of resources that we need in AWS? Are we being efficient? Are we optimizing those resources? Because remember, the meter is always running. We're getting billed for things that maybe we're not using. So most organizations will then insert a second layer, which is a cloud management company, to help them provision, secure, manage, backup, create compliance, create redundancy, and just overall safety net of running their application in that environment. However, most cloud management companies don't know the next layer, which is Sage. So when you look at Sage, now this cloud management company is helping with your infrastructure, but they're not familiar with Sage software. They're certainly not accredited and probably don't have a depth of experience specifically around that application. My bet would be that their customers use multiple applications, which gives kind of a generalist purview, but not necessarily a specific nuance towards the application they're using. However, what makes Sage very interesting, and in my opinion, one of the best ERP products on the market to date and has been for 30 plus years, is that they enable a phenomenal channel of ISVs and partners to create very specific niches and very specific solutions to issues that maybe the core product doesn't solve. And so a lot of Sage companies don't just use Sage, they use multiple other BI tools or document management solutions or CRM solutions. So this list of publishers can become 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 very quickly. Then you have the business partner, which is DNA, right? They're there to take all of those different solutions, tie those back to a business process for you so that you can consume and move your business forward with the applications. Everything looks like it's been checked, right? All of the boxes have been checked. You have your data center, you have your servers, you have your management company, you have your software, you have your business partner, and obviously you have yourself, the client. Now, what happens when you're actually using the solution gets a little bit more complicated. At some point, you're going to have an issue, whether it's a report that wasn't running correctly or changed after you moved to the cloud, whether it's people connecting in, whether it's a security event, whether it's performance issues, what have you. At some point, there's going to be at least be a question. And at that point in time, you, the client, are going to need to raise your hand and decide who you call. Do you call Sage? Do you call your business partner? Do you call your cloud management company? You can try and call Amazon. I don't think Jeff Bezos is going to pick up, but the point is, it puts the onus back on you to figure out these layers and to bring them together to consolidate towards your overall goals of success for consuming your application in the cloud. It's not about whether you pick the right solution that one time. It's about the risk of having it be inconsistent. Multiple layers, multiple vendors is always going to become more inconsistent as you consume. So the goal of every company that I've been talking to is how to simplify, how to create best of breed silos or containers and have them simplify the consumption of those workloads. Obviously, within Sage, for most companies, this is the most important part of their business. So running their business financials, running their distribution, running their manufacturing. And we want to make sure that as we consume that application, it is as simple as possible. Insert Cloud at Work in DNA. We are the cloud management company. We are the data center. We are the only accredited cloud platform by Sage, and we work with all of the ISVs. We exclusively work in the Sage marketplace and have relationships with 650 other companies just like yourself with the same goals that they had prior to move Sage to the cloud. And we work exclusively and have direct ties right to DNA's support system. So that way, no matter who you call, if you call DNA, if you call Cloud at Work, we're going to symbiotically work together to take your problem and get it across the goal line, not come back to you with another problem saying it's not our problem. We are over communicators and over collaborators. And that's what makes Cloud at Work different. So that's what makes us different, and this is what makes us stand out. Most cloud companies, when you go to do an evaluation of them, a lot of organizations I talk to don't know how to compare. At Cloud at Work, we are 100% virtual private. So what that means is one customer is not sharing anything with another. There's not one common thread, not one common piece of software, not one common piece of management, tooling, anything like that. Everything is completely isolated from one another. So that means performance issues isolated to each customer will never impact you. Security issues will never impact you isolated to each customer. Every customer has their own firewall, their own VLAN, their own licensing. Everything is completely built in your own bubble of our cloud. Now, because of that architecture, we're able to guarantee 99.99% uptime. Now, what that equates to is roughly 52 minutes of unscheduled downtime per year, and we contractually back ourselves with that. Azure and AWS, they guarantee 99.95, which is slightly below our contractual guarantee. However, just that 0.5 difference actually adds 2 hours of downtime guarantees back. Now, for the last 4.5 years, we've trended at 6 nines, which is sub 32 seconds of unplanned outages or unplanned downtime for customers. So very, very proud of that and really unheard of in the industry. The interesting thing to me is as you're comparing cloud organizations, this is very important to know. If a company is telling you that they have 100% SLA, run. There is no such thing. It doesn't exist. There is no such thing as a bulletproof solution. If they're telling you it's 100% up or 100% available, that means that they're in their contract, they're just going to pay you or give you money back when they're down. The second thing is look at the difference between 99.9, almost 9 hours, compared to 99.9, less than 1 hour. That's a big difference. That's an entire day of work, right? So something to be very cognizant of. Now, the way that we operate our core product is through our data center network. So we own and operate all the infrastructure and solution. So we own from the very base layer of infrastructure of the cloud all the way through the end user experience. Now we do that through our network of data centers. Our primary data centers in the US are outside of Philadelphia, and just outside of Dallas, Texas, in Plano. And our most recent build is in Barrie, Ontario, which obviously gives us our Canadian footprint for our Canadian brothers and sisters, and really helps solidify the entire solution set and adds a layer of solution that really is unmatched in the space for Sage end users in Canada. Couple of quick specs. Everything within our cloud environment is custom built to your needs and to your goals. So you're not going to hear from us red tape or saying, no, we can't do that. You have a customization, you have an integration, a third party. We have experience there, and that's where we thrive. Every customer has hourly snapshots of 48 hours and daily backups for 30 days, all on separate networks. And you have the option out of the box to have that reside in 2 separate data centers. So out of the box with our solution, you have 3 layers of data: production data, snapshot data, and backup data, all stored on 3 separate networks in 2 different locations. There's no limitations to what you can accomplish on our platform. And as well, we have things like EDR and XDR, which are security options, managed security, as well as DR, disaster recovery, dual factor authentication, and multiple different packages that you can layer on based on your security footprint and your security goals. Okay, enough with the Cloud at Work commercial, but I always find it's helpful to let you know who we are and what we do. What I would like to do now is kind of get into the trends. Before we do that, let's kind of recoup where we were 5 years ago with technology and now where we are post COVID. So if you think about 5 years ago, remote connectivity, connecting in remotely, working remotely, 20% of our workforce, maybe, other than maybe a travel scenario, but permanent remote employees, not necessarily a common thing. We would, for the most part, our days were traveling to work, going to a centralized location, gathering, working, all under that same network or under that same local area network, and then going home. And when we got home, we put the keys in the bucket or on the tin, and we went on our way. Right now, we're interacting more frequently from multiple networks on multiple devices, and we're doing it regardless, right? Whether we work from home permanently, we have a hybrid scenario, work from an iPad, while we're traveling. It's definitely more prevalent now than it was 5 years ago. So that is one subset of burden that we need to think about. We have our own demands for faster speeds. We want things faster. Younger generations coming in want things faster. And as well, the applications or the things that we're using are faster, more in demand. That generates more data. So now more than ever, we're consuming and saving and producing more data than we ever have. And that's not a trend that's going to slow down. That's going to continue. All of this data and all of these interactions all need to be able to happen on any device anywhere. If we need to get on our phone or our iPad or a laptop or a PC, an Apple, what have you, we need to be able to do it, and we need to be able to do it now. 5 years ago, we were talking by the coffee machine or talking by the water cooler. Now we have virtual water coolers, right? Teams, Zoom are more prevalent now. It's a big part of a lot of companies' workloads. What does this mean for both technology and how we need to prepare as we go forward? While all these things kind of transition and shift, we need more on-demand results. When we need something, we need it. And the applications that we're running, the versions, the third parties, they're becoming more and more powerful. They require more and more resource, and we need to stay up to date with that. So what happens when the progress or the growth, it slows down or breaks or stops working or it doesn't work as intended? It's chaos, right? It's pain. We see the light at the end of the tunnel. we know where we need to go with our business, and we know what needs to happen, that we need to be accommodating to our employees' needs, and we want to be productive. But if we can't get that to work for some reason, it's chaos. We're frustrated, unproductive. So that takes us into the first challenge of legacy thinking. And what I mean by legacy thinking is the things that we bought 5 years ago, the way that we bought it, the way we evaluated it needs to change. The markets and the supply chains and the other items that we're going to go through are going to force our hand that we need to evaluate differently. We need to ask different questions, and we need to validate our own businesses and what our goals are and establish them. So that way we can be prepared. The first item that we're going to talk about is supply chain. Now, this is definitely not an uncommon word in today's age, right? It's very difficult to get things in certain cases. However, IT is not immune from this. Cloud at Work, we spend millions and millions of dollars on IT infrastructure every year. It's our business. That's how we're able to grow. It's how we're able to sustain customer retention. It's how we're able to deliver an excellent experience. So my job is to manage these lead times, to manage all of the different changes that are happening overseas in China, Taiwan, the UK, and how we can source or procure through the world's largest distributors, world's largest manufacturers, the gear and the substance that we need to be successful. It's a full-time job. It's not easy. In some cases, we're managing hardware lead times up to 1 year. Now, the things that we buy are a little bit, I would say, the Ferrari or the Lamborghini of IT infrastructure, right? We're buying very, very high-end pieces. However, it starts at the top and works its way down. Pretty soon, we're going to begin to see that normal IT infrastructure, PCs, IT switches, routers, servers, if you haven't already felt it, you will when you go to buy it. They're not readily available. They're not on the shelf anymore. So what does this mean? Well, it means that setting it and forgetting it is gone. 5 years ago, we might have been able to maybe not have a ton of redundancy, and we bought a server or 2 servers. Now, if one of them breaks, maybe we can't get that part for 6 months. We need to prepare for that. It changes the way that we buy. It changes the way we evaluate what is a good investment and what isn't. Single points of failure at this point, being okay with risk, it comes down to a business decision. It comes down to actual tangible downtime and risk, and having a plan in place to mitigate that risk, whether we do it up front proactively or if we have to react to it and we have a plan or a step-by-step process. Either way, I think for most of us, we weren't thinking about, man, if something breaks, I'm not going to be able to buy it, right? It kind of just stings having to buy some stuff at times when things break. But now, what if you can't even buy it? Unfortunately, this is going to get worse and more widespread. Now, there are steps in place to begin manufacturing in North America microprocessors and chips, but that's definitely a forward-looking solution to the challenge. So, what does this mean? If something breaks, it's going to take about 12 to 18 months to get something new. You're going to pay 30 to 40% more in the secondary market. That number is actually closer to 60 to 70% increase. And we still are unwilling to bend from the employee user experience. And the reaction that I've seen from a lot of companies who are kind of backs against the wall is to snap react to go to the cloud. And while it's not a bad answer, I'm not saying the end result isn't where it needs to be, the lack of planning and the lack of conversation and the lack of proactiveness creates a state of chaos. And all while you're trying to scramble, you're unable to be productive. And so it's definitely something that we need to think about differently. That's the whole theme of my presentation. I'm not saying everyone has to go to the cloud, but these are real life scenarios that we need to take into account. So there's 3 ways we can solve this. We can buy more stuff. We can invest in maybe a recovery system for our local IT build, or we can proactively migrate or plan a migration to the cloud. First scenario, buy more stuff. So we're going to now be in the business of managing lead times similar to what Cloud at Work does. Maybe not a huge burden, right? Most organizations have a purchasing department, etc. But we're going to need to buy more to fill those single points of failure, single gaps. It's going to be more expensive, so we need to account not only for inflation, but also account for the additional stuff that we're going to need to either keep on hand or at least implement. And we're going to need to be managing it and securing it, which becomes its own challenge in third-party IT provider, internal IT consultant versus, another managed service company, right? There's always that kind of triangle of comparison. However, security, management, people, these are pressures that are continuing to grow and become more difficult to find. The second is investing in disaster recovery. So we can take the same approach to our IT, and we can say, hey, listen, I'm just going to invest in a failover, right? If something catastrophic happens to our local environment, we're going to invest in Datto, which a lot of companies use. We're going to invest in infrascale. We're going to invest in maybe an environment in public cloud like AWS and Azure. This is definitely a solution that could work. However, given the lead times that you see with buying hardware, these types of DR strategies, you need to make sure that you can run effectively your business for multiple months. So when implementing a DR strategy, the biggest mistake that I see companies make is they're not testing real life scenarios. They're not testing workloads and process. I'll give you an example. I was working with a pharmaceutical company. They were impacted by ransomware. They had a Datto device locally and wanted to restore to their cloud because their hardware was very old. And when they went to restore, they found out that their hardware was very severely impacted through this attack. When they went to use Datto's cloud, they very quickly realized that their Sage application was not running effectively. There was major processes and major performance that was missing, and they were crawling as a company using that solution. The reason why is because the cloud that they were recovering to certainly had enough space. It had the resources where people could connect and view and access, but when you actually went to run business in it, it's not built for that. Certainly not built for the long term. This, unfortunately, was one of those companies that called us. Well, not unfortunately, they called us, but they called us and immediately needed to snap react to our cloud. We quickly, within, it was actually over New Year's, we quickly restored them within 24 hours, got them live within 3 days, and they're still a cloud customer today. So when you look at and you rely on these safety nets of DR, make sure you're testing. And as well, make sure you're evaluating the spend, right? The risk and the spend of these additional solutions compared as well, bolted on to the purchase of new stuff. And the third, won't get into super detail. I'm sure we all know the benefits, the general benefits of cloud, but we can begin to proactively evaluate cloud computing as an answer. We have scalable resources up and down, built-in redundancy, enhanced performance, enhanced security, and you're not buying things anymore. That to me generally is a very good outcome for a lot of companies, which is why we've seen a ton of interest in at least evaluation. I will say this, that there are tons and tons and tons of cloud computing companies out there. I've been in the industry from the beginning, about 15 years. It's sad to say that the beginning of cloud computing was 15 years ago, but I've been working in the cloud industry for a very long time. And there aren't any bad cloud companies. There are just bad salespeople who don't want to set the right expectation. So the comparison of cloud is very simple. If you think about the old bell curve and you think about supply and demand, insert risk and cost. The more risk that you're willing to assume as a company, meaning the more risk, whether it's single points of failure, multi-tenancy, not having a ton of backup, I'm willing to accept that risk, the less money you should spend in the cloud market. The more risk that you're looking to push out, hey, I need this to be available all the time. I need DR, we need security features, we need these things because of, that's the more money that you're going to spend. There isn't a one size fits all cloud organization out there. Everyone is architected differently and looking to solve different problems using the uniformity of the word cloud. So when you hear cloud, don't think every one of those companies are doing the same thing or prioritizing your needs in the same way. As I mentioned, it's important to have those goals and to be very aware of your own goals and what success looks like. Okay, so that was the first one, supply chain. Things are harder to get, and we need to think about them differently. The second piece is the office is almost gone. We have about 650 customers, as I mentioned. We did a survey, just kind of asking about how the businesses are architected and what's happening, post the pandemic. Not to anybody's surprise, there's a big mix. However, 5 years ago, for sure, the dominant slice of pie was, hey, we're going to an office. Now, about 25% of our customers, just kind of look at a sample size, but about 25% are working in a hybrid role, about 45% are full-time remote, and the rest are going back to the office. So it's very much all over the place. What this means is that our technology, our infrastructure, our data center needs to be able to promote that flexibility. When the pandemic hit, the reason why we saw such an uptick in security, as well as impacts to business actions, was because businesses weren't prepared to run remotely. They were not secured. And unfortunately, bad actors knew this. So when you're using things like Go to My PC or VPNing in, right? Virtual private networks secure that connection. However, when you're using a personal device on an unsecured local network, what steps are being taken to secure that home network and the device that you're connecting on to corporate data, to the corporate data center? And if there aren't barriers or different types of monitoring and capability locally at the data center, it's a problem. From a performance standpoint, businesses weren't set up to be a data center. They were set up to access those things locally. So bandwidth consumption went through the roof. These are all things that we're working through as a company to kind of figure out where we want to go, but it's important to understand that this is going to change and it's only going to compound. According to Gartner and IDC, today, we interact with a smart device, a computer, a laptop, and interact with a data center roughly about 2,800 times a day. Now I have two young boys, 6 and 11, and I can promise you that most days I lose my voice telling them to get off of their phone, right? Scrolling through TikTok or looking at different videos, etc. I probably won't have a voice by 2025 because, and unfortunately, it's going to double. According to these companies, by 2025, our interaction, both professionally and personally, will double. That's a lot. I mean, today I feel like I'm in front of a screen using technology quite a bit. To have that double is very eye-opening. However, when you think logically about the business, what does that mean for us? We have to be prepared for that. We have to be ready to have a platform or to have scale for our employee and customer needs of how they want to interact with us. The third bullet point is cybersecurity. So in 2021, there were over 140 million ransomware attempts. There were 68 different variants and over $103 million transacted per month due to ransomware. That's absolutely insane. It's crazy. This is mid-pandemic, right? We talked about that. And you would think, okay, Tyler, you're right. There was that transition to remote. It had to have slowed down by now. It hasn't. It's increased at an increasing rate. If you ever want to know trends, follow the insurance companies. So 5 years ago, I remember insurance companies beginning to release what they called cyber liability insurance. And this was right around the time when companies were saying, all right, we have to change our security posture, we have to change our behavior. Ooh, here's a cyber insurance policy. Maybe we can just do this, and this policy covers us if we get impacted by ransomware, by an attack. And so people would buy it and then never change. They would never change their behaviors. They would never insert training, never change the back end technology. They would just assume either they weren't vulnerable, they weren't a target, or they would assume, hey, I'm covered if I get hit. The insurance companies knew this, and they knew that the trends of cybersecurity were moving upward. They knew it wasn't a targeted attack for most companies, that they were phishing, right, for people who weren't prepared, who didn't have the right procedures in place. And they were right. Many people were impacted through the years of 2019, 2020. And beginning in 2021, insurance companies started making it mandatory that if you were accessing applications remotely, you needed to use dual-factor authentication. Dual-factor authentication is when you get that code on your text message and you have to type that in. It's the first time in my lifetime that I remember that an outside industry other than government has made a dictation to the industry of, hey, do this or else. And it's changed behavior tremendously. What I've also seen is that those premiums have skyrocketed. And the carrot is do these things that will help drive your premiums down, similar to car insurance companies, right? Hey, take this driving course, or don't have an accident for so long, and right? So they built this insurance product essentially from the ground up, and it's one of the most widely used in the world. However, the premiums are now going up because people are using it more. And now they're saying, if you want to lower your premium, show either a good track record of security health, or what's next? Are they going to dictate that we need to go through SOC 2 Type 2? I can tell you Cloud at Work does it every single year. We go through our SOC 2 Type 2 audit. It is not fun. It's a lot of work. We have employees that are just dedicated to going through that audit. Are we going to have to go through different hoops to verify, or have a third party verify our security competency and our security posture? It's interesting to think about, right? The theme here is we can't do nothing. We have to evaluate this. This has to be a part, because this now directly impacts our pocketbook. If we're subscribing to a cyber insurance policy and we think that we're covered, there's a very good chance that if we're not using technology the right way, if we're not interacting and training our employees the right way and having regular cadences and aware, that if we are impacted, the insurance company may not cover it. So it could directly impact hard dollars, something to be aware of. The fourth is inflation. So IT infrastructure, buying things, we are not immune to this. The big piece that I feel, or this trend, what I find is, a gallon of gas, a gallon of milk, it will come back down, right? It'll go up, then come back down. IT infrastructure, this is just going to increase at an increasing rate. Why? Because it can. everyone is willing to pay or unwilling to pay, but reluctantly paying. So IT infrastructure always is going up, but now it's able to go up astronomically due to demand and supply chain and so forth. So account for that. And the last, which I feel is the most important, is the workforce, people, and retention. With our decision making on our platform and our decision making on technology and our stance on security and our stance on these things and how we interact with our applications and how we interact with each other, these all build culture. These all build feelings, of the overall workplace, especially if you're remote. If you don't have the flexibility, you're going to have a hard time. If you don't have a flexibility with technology, you're going to have a hard time attracting younger generations. And you'll end up becoming a takeoff company rather than a company where you're landing or a destination. So we have to create the flexibility with technology. We need to be aware of our surroundings and what's happening in the world and have that impact the way we evaluate, not only for the here and now, but also for the future. So in summary, not to scare anyone, but this is kind of a perfect storm, right? These things of supply chain, remote connection, not having a centralized place, cybersecurity increasing at an increasing rate. Things are getting more expensive. And as well, new generations coming in that we need to attract. These are all impacting the way that we evaluate IT. And cloud is a big part of that. Not the only part, but a big part of that. And if you remember back to the mission of Cloud at Work, our goal is to create simplicity. We want to create a simple way to consume and to focus on the things that move your business forward. Certainly IT infrastructure and servers aren't that thing, but managing it, securing it, making it available is a big part of business today. And it's a very difficult part. And it takes away from focusing on the applications and the third parties and the customizations in moving the needle for rather either growth or efficiency within our companies and operations. So I lied. I guess it was a 42-minute presentation, but I want to thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the ears and eyes. And if you have any questions, please type them in. I'd love to interact with you and talk with you and answer any of those now. So with that, I'll turn it over to Will and see if there are any questions.
All right, thanks, Tyler. I'm just going to put one poll on now just to see. We just had the one poll. Let me, I'm going to take the baton back. Give me 1 second here. And, oops, that didn't go very well. So you can see my screen, Tyler?
Yep, yeah, I see your screen.
So I'm just going to launch this poll. Right, can you see the poll now?
We can.
Yeah, we're collecting responses. I'm going to give a few more seconds here. So it's really just asking you if you want us to follow up with you. I know it's probably, you're welcome to reach out with us, and I'll put the slide up at the end on how to. But if what Tyler is talking about today is of interest to you, please let us know. We'd rather we talk to you before something bad happens, and it's happened to many clients over the years. Ransomware is only getting more prevalent, as Tyler mentioned. It's not less. I was on a session by an industry security expert, and he basically said it's, as a business, it's not if, it's when you're going to get ransomware based on what's going on in the world today with bad actors and nations that are basically attacking everybody. It doesn't matter what industry. If they can find a vulnerability, they're going to attack it and try and take you down for money or just to cause chaos. And it's always better to deal with moving your business critical systems to a cloud offering to improve security and reliability and all the other features before than after, because the after is no fun. I'm just going to close the poll and I'll share our, we got a large percentage of people that are interested. So we'll be in touch, and let me just get to the questions here. I am going to resume my slideshow here. Go to the Q&A. So I got one question here, Tyler. It's asking, how does your partnership with Sage work? For example, who does take care of Sage updates? So we can answer that together, but basically what we're doing with Cloud at Work manages the infrastructure that we're going to put move your Sage 300s, the secure infrastructure, I should say, that we're going to move your Sage 300 to. They can provide some support, and I'll let Tyler talk about that, but basically it's the same as what you do today. DNA does not worry. What we worry about is that you're running on secure and up-to-date infrastructure, and we encourage you to do that through whoever your infrastructure is managed by. But we also recommend going forward that for those that it makes sense, hosting your Sage 300 in a secure and certified data center is the best option to prevent, as I mentioned, not losing data, being hacked, having to recover, having to restart from the beginning if your backups get ransomware as well, which happens, as well as all the benefits Tyler talked about from working from home, remote access, always being available on any device from anywhere. So Tyler, do you want to also talk a little bit about what Cloud at Work can offer on to our Sage clients as well from a support side?
Yeah, I think the question was talking about, Sage updates and Sage support. So there's nothing will change as far as your interaction with DNA. So you still have complete freedom to do upgrades when you want to do them. You still have complete freedom to apply patches and to apply updates at the application level on demand. We will take care of all of your Windows updates, all of your infrastructure patches, security patches, etc. And that's completely managed and included in our solution.
Okay.
So from an infrastructure perspective, networking perspective, we will manage and secure and patch and update. From an application perspective, our customers really love the flexibility to be able to apply those, not necessarily in an automated fashion, but when it's convenient or proper for their business.
For sure. And something we didn't mention, Tyler, is it gives you, the Cloud at Work offering is somewhat unique in that the end users have a couple of ways to actually get to their Sage 300, which can actually be easier than they may think. People are maybe used to having, Windows remote desktop set up, or the terminal services type access where you're logging in through you mentioned VPNs or virtual private networks before, and having to connect to that, and then having to go to a virtual desktop and then actually launch Sage 300. You have another option that's available if somebody just wants to quickly get into Sage 300, get into the AP or AR module and just look up some information or do some transactions, right?
Yeah, it's called RDS Published App or RDS Web. So basically what we can do is you would actually publish the Sage icon right to your native desktop or your native machine. And you'd be able to access that very easily. Click on the link just as you normally would, authenticate into Sage, and you're good to go. The other flexible way is if you're on a foreign device, maybe we haven't created that shortcut on that device, you can go to any web browser, type in your unique URL, and it'll take you to a portal where you can click on that Sage icon and launch Sage that way as well.
Yeah, so the Sage desktop app is basically running in a browser in that case, right? Like you're still using the same interface that most of our Sage 300 clients are comfortable with, which is the classic desktop user interface, right? But they also are able to use it through a browser now.
No, well, Sage 300 can certainly be accessed through web screens, through the application. It is web enabled there. But the classic desktop version of that, yes, you can access the icon through the web portal and then launch that desktop version from anywhere very easily. So not necessarily working in a web browser, it doesn't look any different in that scenario, but it's just a very convenient way to get to your Sage if you're on a foreign device, and secure way as well.
All right. Got another question here. We'll wrap it up pretty soon here. So somebody asked, and I don't think we really talked about this, what's the onboarding process look like? Is it hard to get to the cloud? Do you wanna, I'll let you answer that, Tyler.
Yeah, so there are two main ways that companies migrate. The first, and certainly the most common, is at time of upgrade. So when anybody does an upgrade to Sage, right, there's a requirement to kind of do a seed, and then you update that seed outside of production. So very easily you can take the copy of data, move it to Cloud at Work, and then do the upgrade to Sage in Cloud at Work, and then go live once you've done testing of the new upgrade and your acceptance of that new feature set. The other thing to mention is when you're doing upgrades, if you're a current Cloud at Work customer and you go to do an upgrade while in Cloud at Work, we'll actually give you a temporary environment for 30 days to do that upgrade in for free. So you're not paying for dual environments. So it's just one way that we're aware of the Sage ecosystem and what it needs to be successful. And the second way to migrate is called a lift and shift. And the reason we call that is basically we take your existing servers, your existing virtual servers in the construct, and just move those VMs exactly as is over to Cloud at Work. It's definitely the quickest way, and it's super easy to do that. Traditionally, the time to migrate, the process, the lead time to begin our kickoff calls is usually about a week, and we can have customers migrated usually within 30 to 45 days.
Right. So that's perfect. And that kind of leads into the next question, which is, what about access to my data? How does my team get to our data? And I'm not sure, we could probably answer both questions. You know, if they wanted to keep their own backup of their data as well as what you keep potentially, or also I could see it also meaning, you know, running reports and that sort of thing, or copying data to and from the environment maybe. Can you answer those?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, this environment is completely yours. So you as a customer, if you have IT personnel, we're very much a co-managed company. We want to support or be an extension of your IT function at your organization. We're not looking to put a barrier up or make it more difficult. We want to, as I mentioned, be over collaborators and over communicators. So your IT function could have full administrative access to your infrastructure, access to your data, SQL access, etc. No problem there. And as Will had mentioned, even customers sometimes would like to install their own backup solution on our cloud on top of what we do to maybe keep data locally. Not necessary. I mean, we can certainly provide you a copy of data very, very, very quickly, but we're okay with it as long as your IT function is comfortable with managing that process. So you'll find that we're completely flexible. We're building solutions and building accommodations based on your needs and wants as a business now and for the future. So if you need something similar or one-off like that, that's what we exist for, to help provide that solution.
And sharing spreadsheets or something like that among the Sage users, you know, is there like maybe you just want to talk about the shared drive capability and that sort of thing, because people sometimes have that concern as well. Like I'm used to, you know, running a report and maybe doing a pivot table on that report for my Sage data, and then maybe sharing with others.
Yeah, so what a lot of clients do is it's called basically extending their Active Directory or domain.
Yep.
And what that does is it actually creates a mimic or extends all of your security roles, procedures, sharing policies, and creates and makes Cloud at Work an extension of your local IT policy. So
Right.
things like single sign-on and interacting with others, as well as interacting with local file share drives, etc., becomes extremely easy.
Sorry.
Within the application and the environment, there's no limitation to functionality as well. So we do have customers who bring Sage and then also bring all of the rest of their IT infrastructure to our cloud.
Right.
Completely fine with us.
Yeah, some of them use like Office 365 E3 or higher, right? If they have those licenses already in place, they can leverage that, correct?
Yeah, so at Cloud at Work, as I mentioned, we're a large Azure partner as well. So basically, you can have a multi-platform access with your Office 365 licensing if you're on Business Premium or above.
Yeah.
And at Cloud at Work, we actually have packages to help you utilize and manage those Office 365 workloads and use, and then as well have access to enhance upon that through Azure services like Azure Virtual Desktop and Azure Infrastructure for other workloads. So we take an agnostic approach to your infrastructure and IT footprint from a cloud perspective and try and work within the Microsoft construct of tools to make life easier and simplistic while at the same time creating a very scalable platform for Sage.
Yeah, and before I get to the last question here, did we talk about multi-factor authentication that Cloud at Work can provide?
I think very briefly, but yeah, certainly we can incorporate any organization's current MFA or multi-factor authentication solution, or we can provide you with ours. We standardize on a company called Duo, which is an industry-leading multi-factor company. So we do have that available. We provide that at cost to our customers because we feel it's extremely important. But as I mentioned, we can provide that for you, or you can bring your own as well.
Yeah, and that's really, we're getting more and more asks about that. Sage 300 at this time doesn't support that. It may be on the roadmap, but it's quite far out. And if your IT department or your security requirements are pushing you towards having your applications have multi-factor authentication, we can do this through Cloud at Work now. So if that's something that's come up, please get in touch with us about that, because it does kind of extend that out over your Sage 300. The last question I have here, and we're getting near the top of the hour, we are expecting to grow. So how do we add users or more space if needed? Are there additional costs? That's a good one.
Yeah. So we aren't a traditional Sage hosting company that maybe you've seen already. We do not price per user. We are very transparent with our pricing, simplistic, but yet transparent, where we want to be able to show not necessarily every single detail of how the sausage is made, but we want people to be able to find out how the sausage is made if they'd like. So I'll give you an example. If you're growing and you come to us and you have 10 users, and we're a company that's selling you at $100 per user, so it's $1,000 a month, right? We're just making up numbers at this point. And all of a sudden you add 3 users. So I say, okay, well now you're paying $1,300 a month. Those 3 users don't necessarily represent any increase at all. Maybe some licensing. That's about it. So what happens in the scenario of pricing per user? It does create a simplistic simplistic way to operate, a simplistic way to scale. However, we find that at any given point, either we're taking advantage of our customer or our customer is taking advantage of us in the pricing. We'd much rather just be transparent and be able to scale and add incremental costs as needed and help guide you and be a strategist with you as you do that. So the quick answer is we can scale RAM, disk, CPU, licenses within minutes. We're getting to the point where we're going to be able to self-service our customers to do that themselves through a portal, but super easy, super simple, and as well, not going to break the bank as you grow and scale, which I think we all look for as we grow.
Right. And just to be clear, our Sage 300 clients still pay their subscription fees to Sage and any of the ISVs that we have. DNA still supports you on this platform. We get a login, so that nothing really changes. We're just moving to a more secure infrastructure with a whole bunch more features and probably better speed and way better access from anywhere on any device. So you're really well covered if you, aside from the fact that you're basically eliminating or the chance to get ransomware and have an outage, which can be significant. And in some cases, we've had to rebuild people from scratch because their backups were corrupted as well, the way they were backing up for days, weeks, months, and that sort of thing. And that's a huge impact and not fun to deal with. So that can be a problem, but it's also just peace of mind. Your auditors will be happier. And overall, as Tyler mentioned, your users are going to be happier. So if you have more questions about this, please get in touch with us, just sales@da.ca, or call the office, and Michelle or Mike, as some know him, Miriam and I can help you, and we can get Tyler's team involved. We'll go through the requirements and we'll get you some costing. If you want to see how it works, we can set that up with Tyler's team as well, because it is really easy to get to log in and run your Sage 300. And like I said, it's probably faster than what you have today. That's been my experience anyway, because it's just better managed, it's better sourced, and it's running on big honking machines at the data center in Barrie, and you're going to just enjoy the user experience. Well, I really thank you and Jennifer for setting this up so we could have this discussion today. As I said, it's recorded. We'll be sending out the recording after. And for those of you that answered that you want to be in touch, we'll be in touch shortly. And please don't hesitate to send us any more questions, because it's gaining more and more momentum, and we'd rather you dealt with it now than when you're in a good position than when you're in a bad position and something's happened to your current infrastructure. So appreciate the time, Tyler. Great to talk to you again. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you all so much.
All right, bye.